What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller from Hook'emHeadlines.com. Coming back at y'all today with my post-game reaction to Texas basketball's big 76-71 win over number 11 Baylor. Number 10 Texas was able to snap a 6-game losing streak dating back to the 2018-19 season against Baylor. I believe they had also lost a dozen of the last 13 tries against Baylor. So just like the last half decade or so, or last 6 years, Baylor has really had Texas's number, and tonight I think was a really important win for multiple reasons. First and foremost, just that if you want to contend in the Big 12, you have to get home wins like this. Getting a home win over a team that was rolling like Baylor was with a 6-game winning streak heading into tonight is obviously never an easy task. Baylor seemed to be really finding its stride right now. And, Texas was able to grind this one out. I mentioned in my post-game takeaways, which I did over at the site. As always, I'll link that in the description below if you want to read more on that. But I mentioned it was a grind-out win for Texas because it seemed like every single time Texas would get in some distance against Baylor, maybe like a 6, 8, or 10-point lead, that Baylor was bringing it back within 1 or 2 possessions, especially late in the second half. So, in terms of the offensive output late, this was a really important, really challenging win for Texas. So like I said, grind it out, I think is a good way to sum it up. But yeah, I mentioned that these are the type of wins you have to get in the Big 12 if you want to be able to contend for a regular season title in this conference. This is the best and deepest conference in college basketball. And, Texas was able to move into first place, a half game ahead of Kansas State. Full game ahead of Iowa State, because Iowa State had that weird overtime, massive comeback loss to Texas Tech tonight. And then Kansas State plays Kansas tomorrow, so Kansas State could potentially move back into a first-place tie with the Longhorns. But yeah, this win moves Texas to 7-2 on the season in Big 12 play, 18-4 overall. I think another really big part of this win for Texas is the fact that you needed to bounce back after what happened against Tennessee on Saturday. Tennessee is a really good team, a really stout defensive team, but I don't think Texas came out with its best effort on Saturday night. And, I think the fact of the matter is that you needed to get back on the right track in Big 12 play, and that's ultimately where it mattered. Texas has been a really good team at home this season. They've now beaten 4 ranked teams at the Moody Center, and we'll have the opportunity to rack up more of those ranked wins in the Big 12 in the next couple weeks. So, I would say the last reason why this was such a big win is given the timing of it. Texas is in the midst of this, like I said, really difficult stretch where you had to face number 4 Tennessee, number 4 Tennessee on Saturday, number 11 Baylor today, and then you also have to face, I think I'd have to look back at the ranking or the updated rankings for this week, but you have 2 more top 15 teams in Kansas and Kansas State next Saturday and then again next Monday. So quick turnaround on those. But this is probably the most difficult 4-game stretch of the regular season schedule. And I would assume that maybe a 2-2 or 3-1 outcome from this stretch. If you get 3-1 at this point, that would be massive. But even 2-2 through this really difficult stretch, I would still consider not a massive success, but still a success. Would keep Texas afloat in the top 10 and keep them well within title contention in the Big 12. But yeah, let's talk about some of what happened in this game and where Texas goes from here. So Texas got a really, really big night from 2 players that I think lifted the team. The first being Timmy Allen. Senior forward had a really, really impressive offensive night. 17 or 18 points. Let me confirm that. 18 points. He's 7 of 10 shooting from the field. Was 4 or 5 from the free throw line. Again, he used money from the mid-range. He was getting to the foul line, and he was clutch at the line when needed late in this game. Also gave Texas a half dozen rebounds, team high 4 assists, just 2 turnovers and then 1 block. He was also really solid on the defensive end. And so all around solid night for Timmy Allen. He was shut down pretty pretty well by Tennessee in the last game. Was held to, I believe it was like 6 points. It's not that he necessarily had a bad game, but Tennessee was doubling him and really shutting off the ball when it was in his vicinity. So nice to see Allen getting back involved. He had a really big night in Texas' win over Oklahoma State, and throughout most of Big 12 play, he's been really solid. And so, really kept up the pace in this one. The other shout out that I want to give here is to Serge Rice. 21 points, tied a season high, but it's his second consecutive 21-point game. He goes 5 of 7 from the field. He was scorching hot from three, went 4 of 5 from beyond the arc, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. A lot of those points coming in clutch time. Again, just insanely valuable contributions that Texas is getting from Rice off the bench. This is, I mentioned, his second consecutive 21-point game. He's now the first reserve player in the Big 12 to have back-to-back 20-plus point outings this season. So, like I said, invaluable contributions for him off the bench. Was it his most efficient game? No, but I also wanted to give at least a little bit of a nod here to Tyrese Hunter. I get it that he shot 29.4% from the field. He was 5-17. By no means is that an amazing night offensively, but 13 points, I think that's the highest total for Hunter now in at least the last couple of weeks. I'll check that just to be sure, but he kind of stuck with it. He had a lot of open looks from beyond the arc, and he wasn't hitting them at a super high clip, but 3 of 12, had 1 or 2 key baskets late. If he's going to ever break out of this slump that he's been in for the last 6 weeks, he's going to have to get a higher volume of shots off than he has in some of these recent games where he had like 6 against Tennessee, he was just 1 of 4 from the field against Oklahoma State. To shake out of these slumps, you got to get your shot, you got to get your confidence back, and it's not going to happen if you're taking 4 or 5 field goal attempts per game. And so, like I said, nice to see Hunter get it was his highest point total since he kind of had that 29-point outburst against Kansas State, which was one of his best performances of the season. So, not super efficient, not where I would want to see from just like a metrics perspective. He finishes with 13 points on 17 field goals. I'd like to see a player like him get closer to kind of maybe that 1.25, 1.5 mark in terms of points per field goal attempt. But, if we're just looking at like where we want Hunter to go and what the purpose of a game like this would be for him, if getting 5 field goals to sink is what gets his confidence up and what gets him back on the right track, at the most important time of the season here in the last few months, then I'm happy with his performance here. And just a couple other things I wanted to give shouts to from more of a team perspective. Texas wasn't the greatest at rebounding in the second half in this game, but as a whole, I do believe they got actually, no, they didn't. 38-37. So they still lost the rebounding battle to Baylor, but they had an edge there throughout most of the game. Baylor started getting a better handle on the boards in the second half, ended up out rebounding Texas 14-8. I thought that Texas was a lot better. I mean, they were definitely a lot better on the boards than they were against Tennessee. Baylor is a good rebounding team, and they have a lot of size down low, and so finishing kind of at a 50-50 mark for the battle on the boards is good enough in this game. I still would like to see Texas being a little bit more physical down low. It feels like sometimes they're not boxing out, and it feels like sometimes some players just aren't in the right position, when it comes to getting the ball off the rim or off the backboard. And, that's something I would like to see continue to improve here in the next few games, just because rebounding was something that really killed them against Tennessee. On another note, though, Texas was pretty good on the defensive end in this one. Baylor is a team that has been scoring at a pretty high rate here in the last few weeks. Their backcourt, they got a lot of really good guards, really capable guards on the offensive end, whether it's LJ Cryer, Keontae George, Adam Flagler. All those guys can shoot. All those guys can cook at any point in time. And they're all averaging at least 14 points per game this season. I think you can see how natural of a scorer Keontae George is in this game. And while, he was held to something like 4 of 18 or 5 of 18 shooting from the field, which props to like Timmy Allen and this Texas defense for locking him up as much as they did. But George still being able to get more than 15 points when he's held to like 25 or 30% shooting from the field just shows how quickly he can get cooking. But then Flagler, Cryer, two guys that, well, I won't say that Flagler had his best night offensively because he definitely did not, but he had his moments, had a couple nice rebounds late in this game. Cryer, though, was the one that just it felt like kept getting Baylor back in this one late, had another 15-plus point outing, and he was really putting a lot of pressure on Texas late. And so, again, being able to hold this Baylor backcourt at bay to some degree is pretty impressive. Baylor in conference play this season scoring around 78 points per game, and I think on the season it's closer to 80. They are one of the best offensive teams in the country. It's largely thanks to that backcourt production. Texas holding them to 71 points, holding them to some like 36% shooting from the field. Again, really solid, really impressive. I'm happy with the way the defense showed out. If we're looking forward here, again, I mentioned we got the Kansas schools coming up. If Texas could split these next two games on the road, it's coming against, again, two top 15 ranked teams, two of the best teams in the Big 12, if not the entire country. So if Texas is able to split them, again, I consider that a success because you come home on February 11th, so the following weekend, and you have a home matchup against West Virginia where you get into a little bit more manageable portion of the schedule again to round out the regular season, at least as manageable as it gets in the Big 12 because it's just such a gauntlet every single night. But anyway, like I said, happy for this win over Baylor and, this Texas team, first place in the Big 12, see where it goes. But right now it's been a really, really good season. Props to Rodney Terry and the Longhorns. But for Andrew Miller, headlines.com, that's pretty much it. Welcome.